Part 1, Segment 1, The Grease Joint's Night Shift. Rain fell sideways that night, drumming against the grease-smeared windows of MacTavish's grease joint like fingers tapping a warning. The fluorescent sign outside flickered weakly. MacTavish's, the C, had long since burned out, leaving the name to pulse like an arrhythmic heart in the dark. Inside, Liam Carter scrubbed the fryer basin for the third time, his knuckles cracked, grease embedding in the small cuts across his fingers. The clock above the register read 12:47 a.m., and the diner was empty except for Angus dozing by the freezer and the sound of a single neon light buzzing overhead. The smell of old oil never left the place. It clung to everything: hair, skin, clothes. Even Emma had commented on it the last time she'd visited. "You smell like something's burning," she'd said softly, eyes flicking toward the floor. He'd laughed it off then. But tonight, the air felt heavier. The storm outside had a rhythm, a strange cadence, almost like breathing. He wiped his hands on his apron and leaned on the counter, staring at the basement door near the kitchen's back wall. It was locked, as always. Manager access only. But Liam knew that wasn't quite true. He'd seen Rory go down there late at night, carrying crates marked special stock, and the man always came back pale, smelling faintly of iron. A low groan echoed beneath the floor. The pipes, he told himself. The plumbing here dated back to when the building had been a Celtic burial crypt, or so the stories said. Cheap rent, haunted history, MacTavish had joked when he hired him. Edinburgh was full of places like this, the dead and the living coexisting out of habit. He picked up a rag, wiped the counter again, and turned toward the door. A small noise, a metallic scrape, came from the locker room beyond the kitchen. He froze, listening. Then again, louder, SCRRKK. Angus snored from the corner, oblivious. Liam sighed, pushing the swinging door open. The locker room smelled of disinfectant and wet uniforms. The flickering fluorescent overhead gave the space a sickly pallor. His locker stood halfway down the row, the metal warped, dented from years of use. But something was wrong. The door was slightly open. He never left it that way. He stepped closer, the floor squeaking under his boots. When he pulled the locker open, his breath caught. Inside, written on the inside of the door, smeared in what looked like dried blood, were words. "The right begins when the sign is turned." Below it, 6 lines, scrawled with a shaking hand, like someone had written them in a hurry. "Initiate the right, flip the sign, spread the salt, set the offering. Feed the cursed, they hunger when the storm breaks. Appease the forgotten, children cry beneath the tiles. Blood-brewed coffee, only they can drink what sustains the seal. Serve the keeper, he watches to remember. Bind the gate, salt, ash, blood, the circle must hold." Liam stared, pulse hammering in his throat. The words glistened faintly under the light, not quite dry. For a second, he thought he smelled iron, sharp and sweet, like raw meat. "Angus," he called out. No reply. Just the hum of the old freezer. He swallowed and reached into the locker. Beneath his spare apron, something else was there, a small tin of salt, half full, and a wooden coaster with a dark ring around it. He frowned, holding it up. The ring wasn't paint. It was dried blood. For a long moment, he just stood there, feeling the slow creep of something cold behind his ribs. Then he laughed, short and bitter. "Someone's screwing with me," he muttered, slamming the locker shut. But when he turned, he noticed the reflection in the small locker mirror, something standing just behind him. Tall. Bent. A silhouette that didn't fit the space. He spun around, nothing there. The locker room was empty. The mirror trembled faintly in its frame. Later that night, when the rain eased, Rory came up from the basement. His white shirt was soaked with stains that didn't look like oil. His face had that same pallid hue, grayish, clammy, with dark veins just beneath the skin. His voice rasped like gravel. "You seen the rules?" he asked without preamble. Liam stiffened. "What rules?" "The ones written for you," Rory said, almost gently. "They appear when it's your turn." Liam's mouth went dry. "My turn for what?" Rory smiled, though the gesture didn't reach his eyes. For keeping it asleep. He gestured toward the storm outside. Every few decades, the seal weakens. The old rites must be done again, through those who work here. You'll see them all soon enough. But first... He reached into his apron and pulled out a coffee mug, crusted around the rim with something dark and sticky. The keeper needs his drink. At 3:12 a.m., the bell above the door chimed. The sign still said closed. Liam froze mid-wipe as a shape entered, a man in an old black overcoat, dripping rain. His eyes were milky, lips cracked. He didn't look at Liam, he went straight to a booth in the back. His hands left smears of red on the seat. Rory's voice came from the kitchen. "Serve him." "That's the cursed." Liam's throat tightened. "With what?" Rory handed him a plate. On it, a burger, raw. No bun, no sides. The smell of blood filled the air. Liam hesitated. "This is..." "What he ordered," Rory interrupted. His tone was final. The man in the booth lifted his head, revealing sharp, glinting teeth behind his cracked lips. His breath steamed faintly red in the light. When Liam set the plate down, the man's eyes, clouded and ancient, fixed on him. "You serve the living," he said softly. "We serve the more." Liam stepped back, heart pounding. Rory stood silently by the counter, watching. The man ate in silence, every sound wet, deliberate, ritualistic. When he finished, he placed something on the table, a coin, old, Celtic, engraved with spirals that made Liam's head ache when he stared too long. Then, without another word, the man walked out into the storm. The bell rang once. Silence returned. At dawn, Rory locked the front door and turned to Liam. His face was colorless now, skin almost translucent in the grey morning light. "You did well," he said. "But it's only the first night. The others will come." "The others?" Liam asked, voice barely above a whisper. Rory nodded, eyes darkening. "You'll serve them, and when the last one is fed, you'll know what it's for. But if you fail," he gestured downward, toward the floor. "It wakes." Liam looked at the floor tiles. He thought he saw something moving beneath them, faint, like the shift of a shadow in water. When he looked up, Rory was gone. Only his mug remained, half empty, the liquid inside swirling like blood in milk. Liam turned the open, closed sign to open and stared at his reflection in the window, pale, tired, and afraid. Somewhere beneath his feet, the pipes groaned again. Except this time, they were breathing. Segment 2, The Blood-Brewed Shift. The morning after the storm, MacTavish's grease joint sat under a bruised Edinburgh sky. The clouds hung low and swollen, reflecting in puddles the color of ash. Liam unlocked the front door at 6:02 a.m. The bell above the entrance gave a weak, metallic chime, and for a moment, the sound seemed to echo longer than it should, like the diner didn't want to wake up. He turned the sign to open, and that same unease from the night before settled deep in his gut. The smell of grease and smoke clung to the air, mixed now with something else, something metallic and faintly sweet, like a wound that hadn't healed. Angus hadn't shown up. His locker was still open, uniform folded neatly inside. Rory was gone, too. Only his coffee mug sat on the counter, a thin red film crusting at the bottom. Liam took a slow breath and tied his apron, trying to push the memory of the bloody rules from his head. It was a prank, he told himself. A sick joke by the staff. Or Rory. But then he saw the coin, the Celtic spiral the strange man had left, lying exactly where he'd placed it last night. It gleamed faintly despite the grey light. When he tried to pick it up, his fingers went cold, and he thought, for just an instant, he heard whispering. "Keep it fed, keep it fed." He shoved it into his pocket, swore under his breath, and went to start the fryers. By noon, the storm had returned. Rain hit the windows in heavy sheets, turning the outside world into a blurred watercolor of grey and white. No customers came. The lights flickered every few minutes, buzzing like angry wasps. The air carried a low vibration, deep and irregular, like the diner itself was exhaling. Liam distracted himself with prep work. He cleaned the grill, diced onions, refilled ketchup bottles. Anything to keep from looking at the basement door. But every time he passed it, he swore he heard faint tapping, rhythmic, steady, almost like someone knocking from below. Around 1 p.m., a woman entered. She didn't open the door. She was simply there, standing in the entryway as if she had stepped through the air. Her dress was soaked in seawater, clinging to her pale skin. Strands of dark hair hung across her face. When she spoke, her voice sounded like the ocean pulling gravel across shore. "The sea is restless," she said softly. "The cursed fed last night. Now the tide must drink." Liam stood frozen behind the counter. His tongue felt heavy. What do you want to order?" She smiled. Her teeth were too sharp. "Salt water. And a piece of heart." He blinked. We don't serve that." "You do now." She placed a wet coin on the counter, its spiral different from the one in his pocket, deeper, almost etched into the metal by claws. Then she slid into a booth, dripping seawater that hissed where it touched the floor. Liam didn't remember deciding to do it. He simply found himself moving, as if the words on the locker door had taken root in his head. He poured boiling water into a coffee pot, then hesitated. Something in the air changed, denser, colder. The smell of iron and salt filled the kitchen. He opened the fridge and froze. Inside, on the top shelf, sat a sealed glass jar he'd never seen before. It was labeled, "Blood Brew, for the rights." The liquid inside shimmered dark red under the light. His hands trembled as he poured a small amount into the coffee pot. It hissed, thick and viscous, but didn't mix, it folded, like something alive. When he brought the steaming cup to the woman, her eyes glowed faintly blue. She inhaled deeply before drinking, the sound wet and rhythmic. Her expression softened, almost peaceful. "The more is pleased," she whispered. "You serve well." Liam stumbled back. "The what?" "The one below. The hunger that dreams. The more." Her smile widened as water poured from her eyes like tears. "It sleeps beneath this place. The grease, the salt, the ash, all of it hides the stench of its breath." She rose slowly, her body flickering like a reflection in moving water. "Bind the gate, Liam Carter. Or it will eat the sky." Then she was gone. Just gone. A puddle of seawater remained where she had stood, and in it, Liam's reflection blinked a half-second out of sync. That night, he sat alone in the diner's office, the old fluorescent light buzzing overhead. He reread the bloody rules he'd transcribed into his notebook, each one now a pulse under his skin. Initiate the rite. Feed the cursed. Appease the forgotten. Brew the blood. Serve the keeper. Bind the gate. He didn't understand, but he couldn't stop thinking about them. He couldn't stop feeling like the diner itself was watching him, the way old buildings sometimes do, as if the walls remembered too much. He lit a cigarette, exhaled, and watched the smoke drift toward the ceiling vent. It didn't rise naturally. It was sucked downward. He stood abruptly. The air coming from the vent was cold. He bent closer, listening. Something whispered from inside the duct, a child's voice. "We're hungry. You forgot us." His blood ran cold. He stumbled backward, knocking over a stack of menus. Then, 3 soft knocks came from beneath the floor. He didn't sleep that night. By morning, Rory was waiting in the kitchen. "You did the coffee," Rory rasped. His face was worse now, grey, sagging, his hands trembling faintly. "That's good. It keeps them calm." "Who?" Liam demanded. "Who are they?" Rory looked at him for a long moment, then nodded toward the floor. "The ones between. The forgotten. They wake when the children do." Liam's voice cracked. "There are children down there." Rory smiled faintly. "Once. They were children once." Before Liam could speak again, a crash came from the dining room. They rushed out, and froze. The ketchup bottles were shattered, glass scattered everywhere. Written across the counter in thick, dripping red, were 2 words. Feed US. The fryers turned on by themselves. The smell of burning oil filled the air. Rory sighed. "You're late," he said. Rule 3. Liam stared at him. "Appease the forgotten." Rory nodded. "They like the sweet things. Give them blood and sugar. And pray you're fast enough." He mixed batter with shaking hands, adding a drizzle of the blood brew from the fridge. The liquid hissed, darkening the mixture into a deep maroon. He poured it into the fryer. Almost immediately, he heard giggles, faint, echoing, all around him. The air turned cold. When he placed the crimson fritters on a plate and set them on the floor, the lights flickered violently. Tiny hands, translucent and dripping, reached from the shadows beneath the counter, snatching the food away. Then silence. Liam staggered back, chest heaving. "What the hell are they?" Rory didn't answer. He was staring at the basement door. "You fed them," he murmured. "Now you'll have to finish the night." "What happens if I don't?" Liam whispered. Rory's eyes shifted toward the floor. Then the moor opens its eyes. At closing time, the fryer oil began to ripple on its own. The air was thick, humming, vibrating like a held breath. Liam turned the sign to closed, heart pounding. He could almost feel the diner's pulse through the tiles beneath his feet. He cleaned in silence. The rules echoed in his mind like prayers. When he finally reached for the light switch, a faint, wet voice whispered behind him. "One more to serve." He turned and saw a hand, blackened, burned, and clawed, gripping the counter's edge from below. The floor bulged upward, tiles cracking like bones. A deep sound rose from the basement, not a growl, not a scream, something older, vast, and patient. It was breathing. And it remembered his name. Segment 3, The Keeper and the Gate. By the third night, the diner no longer slept. Every pipe groaned like lungs filling with tar. The hum of the refrigerators had shifted, no longer mechanical, but rhythmic, almost breathing. The lights flickered with a pulse of their own, matching the slow beat under the floor. Liam hadn't left the building since the storm began. He couldn't. Each time he approached the front door, he'd see faces in the reflection of the glass, pale, distorted, mouths open in silent hunger. They never moved. They just watched. The city outside had changed too. Through the fogged windows he could see that Edinburgh was empty. No pedestrians. No cars. Only rain, falling endlessly on a deserted street that shimmered like mercury. The world had folded in around this place. The grease joint had become the center of something ancient and wrong. He sat at the counter, staring into a half-empty mug of coffee gone cold. The blood brew had left stains up the sides of the pot, and the smell of iron had sunk deep into his skin. Across from him, Rory stood motionless in the doorway to the kitchen. The man hadn't blinked in hours. His eyes were glassy, his skin pale as candle wax. When he finally spoke, his voice rasped like something crawling over dry stone. "You kept them fed," he said. "But the gate weakens all the same." Liam didn't look up. "What are you?" he whispered. "You're not alive." Rory gave a small, weary smile. "No. I was the first keeper. Died here in 1947. Burned alive when the moor stirred last. MacTavish made a pact, blood for silence. The diner was rebuilt on its remains, and I stayed, to keep the ritual running." He stepped closer, his footsteps wet on the tile. "Now it's your turn." Liam's stomach clenched. "No," he said, shaking his head. "I didn't choose this." Rory's tone softened, almost fatherly. "None of us did. The moor chooses. It hungers for guilt, for those who carry the weight of another's death." Liam flinched. "You don't know anything about me." Rory's dead eyes flickered. "Emma," he said quietly. "You still see her in your dreams, don't you?" The crash. The scream. The silence that followed. The air left Liam's lungs. He gripped the counter hard enough to make his knuckles bleed. That wasn't my fault. Rory didn't reply. He just nodded toward the basement door. The more disagrees. The clock above the counter ticked past midnight. Outside, the rain turned red. Liam sat alone in the dining area, watching droplets streak down the windows like veins. He couldn't stop shaking. Rory had vanished again, melted into shadow or smoke or whatever he was, and the silence pressed against his skull like weight. The rules echoed in his head. Initiate. Feed. Appease. Brew. Serve. Bind. He'd done them all, except the last one. Bind the gate. He rose slowly, grabbed the tin of salt and ash from his locker, and approached the basement door. It was warm to the touch. Something inside was moving, slow, massive, wet. The air leaking from the cracks was humid, smelling of rotten seawater. He turned the handle. The door opened into blackness that breathed. The stairs creaked under his weight. Water dripped somewhere below, steady as a metronome. The deeper he went, the thicker the air became, dense and pulsing, filled with a low vibration that thrummed in his bones. When he reached the bottom, his flashlight flickered. The beam revealed stone walls slick with moisture, ancient carvings spiraled across them, the same Celtic sigils as the coins. The floor wasn't solid. It was a membrane, translucent and faintly luminous, stretching like skin over a pit of writhing dark. And in the center of it, a massive iron circle, chained to the walls, glowing faintly red. The gate. It looked alive. And it was breathing. Liam approached slowly, his breath fogging the air. "What are you?" he whispered. A voice answered, not from the darkness, but from inside his head, soft, feminine, and impossibly ancient. "You know me," it said. "You've fed me. You've served me. You've sung my hunger with your guilt." He stumbled backward. "No, I didn't." "You did. Every act of pity. Every drop of remorse. You built my altar with your grief." The iron ring shuddered, its chains rattling violently. From beneath it came the sound of teeth grinding on stone. Then something began to rise. The floor bulged, cracking, splitting open as a single, enormous eye blinked up at him, yellow, veined, and wet. The pupil dilated, reflecting him in its surface, small, trembling, meaningless. "I am the Moor," it whispered. "And I remember." Liam screamed, dropping the salt tin. The contents spilled across the floor, sizzling like acid where they touched the membrane. The gate hissed, the light dimming, and the voice turned furious. "Bind me, or the sky will drown." He didn't think. He just acted. He drew a circle in the air with his own bleeding hand, reciting the fragments of words he remembered from the rules, the phrases half-formed in his mind like memories not his own. The circle flared white. The ground convulsed. A blast of hot, rancid wind hit him like a wall, and from within it came screams. Dozens. Hundreds. Children, beasts, the sea itself crying out. Then silence. When Liam woke, he was lying on the diner floor. The morning light was pale through the windows. Everything looked normal. The fryers were off, the air still. The bloody writing on the counter was gone. But Rory was standing by the door, watching him. His shirt was torn, his skin grey and cracked like burnt porcelain. "You bound it," Rory said quietly. "For now." Liam sat up, dizzy. "For now?" Rory nodded. "It sleeps again. The Moor always sleeps between cycles. But you've tied your soul to it now. That's the cost of keeping it closed." Liam rubbed his temples. I don't want this. I just want to leave." Rory tilted his head. "You can. But you'll still hear it. You'll feel it. It knows you now. It remembers your blood." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Every keeper thinks they can run. But the hunger always finds them again. It wears faces they love. It whispers forgiveness, and when they believe it, it wakes. Liam stared at him. Then what am I supposed to do? Rory smiled faintly, the corners of his mouth cracking open like old wounds. You serve. You wait. And when it stirs again, you pass it on. He handed Liam a small object, a tarnished locker key, etched with a spiral. For the next one. That night, the diner closed early. The rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy and still. Liam sat by the window, staring at the street. In the glass, he saw Emma's face, not behind him, not reflected, but inside the reflection, faintly smiling. You kept me safe, her voice whispered through the hum of the lights. He pressed his hand to the glass. Emma? You did good, Lee, she said softly. Now rest. Her image dissolved as the neon sign outside flickered once, MacTavish's, before dimming out completely. Liam exhaled and turned the sign to closed one final time. The bell above the door jingled. Somewhere deep beneath the floor, the diner breathed in. Part 2, Segment 1, Ashes Beneath Edinburgh. The fire at MacTavish's grease joint burned for 7 hours. By the time firefighters broke through the collapsed roof, the rain had turned to sleet, smothering what remained of the flames. Only the black skeleton of the diner stood, steaming and skeletal against the grey dawn. They found no body inside. The report said the explosion came from a ruptured gas line. The owner, Mr. MacTavish, told the police it was a tragedy, but a natural one. He refused further questions, repeating only that Liam Carter had been a good lad who'd worked too many night shifts for his own good. But Emma Carter didn't believe it. Not the accident, not the story, not any of it. 3 days after the fire, she stood in front of the ruins with a scarf wrapped tight around her neck, watching steam rise from the charred wreckage. The police tape flapped weakly in the wind. Beyond it, the air still smelled faintly of oil and blood. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Emma Carter, a voice asked, deep, rasping. Who is this? Rory. I worked with your brother. Rory, from the diner, she said cautiously. The voice rasped. There's something you need to see. Come tonight. 10 o'clock. Behind the Waverley Steps. Don't tell anyone. The line went dead. At 10:06 p.m., the wind cut sharp and wet across Princes Street. The city was unusually quiet for a Friday night. Emma waited beneath the Waverley Bridge, boots splashing in shallow puddles. A faint hum, like distant machinery, echoed through the tunnels below. She almost turned back when she saw him. Rory. He was taller than she remembered from the diner, thinner too. His skin looked grey under the streetlight, his eyes sunken but bright, as if something burned behind them. Thank you for coming, he said softly. His breath fogged unnaturally slow in the air. What do you want? He hesitated, glancing around before stepping closer. Your brother did what few could. He kept it sealed. But the fire didn't destroy the gate. It only broke its chains. Emma frowned. What gate? What are you talking about? Rory looked up toward the city skyline, where the castle's outline cut through the fog. You've seen the cracks, haven't you? She followed his gaze. The old building shimmered faintly, like heat distortion, though the air was freezing. The moor stirs again, he whispered. And it remembers the blood that kept it fed. He led her through narrow closes and back alleys, descending into Edinburgh's old vaults beneath South Bridge, catacombs built centuries ago, now sealed and forgotten. The deeper they went, the colder it became. The air smelled of salt and smoke. Rory's voice echoed off the stone. Liam tried to bind it. But he was chosen for his guilt, not his strength. The moor feeds on those who regret the living. Emma stopped. You think my brother was, what? Possessed? Rory turned, his face a pale blur in the dark. No. He was a keeper. Like I was. Like you might become. She took a step back. You're insane. Rory smiled faintly. You say that now. But it's already looking at you. He lifted a lantern, its flame flickering weakly. The light revealed the walls, covered in spirals, carved deep into the stone, bleeding faint red light. Emma's pulse spiked. What is this? Rory set the lantern down. The rite began centuries ago, when the clans worshipped what they called an Camhanachmor, the Great Maw. A mouth beneath the city, a hunger older than gods. They fed it offerings to keep the land fertile, the dead asleep. He stepped closer, his voice a low whisper. The diner was built on one of the seals. Every generation, one keeper tends it. The last one dies, and the next is chosen by the Maw itself. Emma swallowed hard. And now that Liam's gone, it's me. Rory nodded slowly. It marked your family long ago. Blood remembers blood. A faint sound interrupted them, a metallic scraping from deeper in the tunnel. Emma turned sharply. What was that? Rory's eyes widened. It's early, he murmured. It shouldn't be waking yet. The scraping grew louder, like nails dragging across steel. Then came the whisper, soft, childlike, echoing from all directions. Emma. She froze. Her throat went dry. That's not. Emma, he fed us, now you will too. Something moved in the dark beyond the lantern light, small shapes, flickering, translucent. Dozens of them. The children Liam had spoken of in his last voice messages, the forgotten. Rory grabbed her wrist. Run. They sprinted through the tunnels, their footsteps splashing through shallow water. The walls seemed to breathe, narrowing around them, the spirals pulsing like veins. The whispers grew into a chorus, laughter, crying, humming lullabies in broken Gaelic. When they burst out into an old maintenance corridor, Rory slammed a rusted door behind them. He turned, panting, though he didn't seem to need air. You saw them, didn't you? The forgotten. They always come first. The Maw sends them to soften the flesh of the world. Emma pressed her back to the wall, heart hammering. You expect me to believe this? Rory leaned close. His skin looked translucent in the lantern's light. You already do, he said softly. You felt it before tonight. The dreams. The shadows that whisper his name. She said nothing. He smiled faintly. It's beginning again. And if you don't want Edinburgh to drown in shadow, you'll have to finish what Liam started. That night, Emma returned home to her flat in Leith. The rain hadn't stopped, it never did now. She sat by the window, clutching Liam's old phone, the one the police had recovered from the wreckage. The screen was cracked but functional. When she powered it on, the screen flickered once, then opened to the Notes app. There was only one entry, dated the night before the fire. Rule 6, bind the gate. If I don't, it wakes. If I do, it takes me instead. I'm sorry, Em. Don't come back here. Don't look for me. Her eyes blurred. The city outside seemed to pulse faintly in time with her heartbeat. And then, the phone buzzed. New notification. No signal. No Wi-Fi. Just one message. From the grease joint. We're open again. At dawn, she drove back to the ruins. The fire site was fenced off, but she climbed over easily. The air was heavy, still reeking of smoke and oil. But where the diner had stood, there was now a hole, deep, circular, and filled with dark water. It shimmered faintly red beneath the morning light. She crouched at the edge, staring down. Her reflection stared back, pale and trembling. Then, behind it, another face. Liam's. You shouldn't have come, his voice whispered, echoing through the water. Emma's breath hitched. Liam? It's not me anymore, he said softly. It's hungry. And it knows your name. The surface rippled. A hand, black, wet, clawed, reached upward, inches from her face. She stumbled back, falling onto the cold ground. When she looked again, the water was still. but carved into the stone around the pit were fresh words, written in something dark and drying. The more endures. Segment 2, The Forgotten Choir. For 3 nights, Emma dreamed in voices. They didn't speak, they sang, dissonant lullabies that rose from beneath the floorboards, every note layered with static and the rhythm of breathing. When she woke, the melody lingered, humming through the radiator pipes, through the rain against the glass. It was as if the city itself was remembering the song. The first morning, she found wet footprints in her hallway, small, barefoot, leading from the door to her bedroom window. Each step left behind a faint scent of seawater and ash. She tried to convince herself it was condensation, or a leak. But when she knelt to wipe them away, she noticed a faint symbol drawn in the dust beside them, a spiral. The same one from the coins. She went to the library on George IV Bridge, searching through old parish records, crime archives, folklore collections. Her fingers shook as she traced faded headlines. Children vanish after storm, 1891, police baffled. MacTavish's cafe rebuilt on Crypt ruins. The singing beneath the streets. Every account ended the same way: fire, collapse, silence. And every 40 to 50 years, another disappearance. When she asked the librarian about the grease joint's location, the old woman's smile faltered. "Best leave that ground alone, lass," she said softly. "Some places keep their dead close." That night, Emma met Rory again in the vaults. The tunnels had grown colder, a fine layer of frost spread across the stone, crackling under her boots. He was waiting near a rusted metal gate, his eyes glowing faintly under the lantern light. "It's begun," he said before she could speak. "The forgotten are singing again." "The children," Emma whispered. "What are they?" Rory's voice was flat. "Offerings. The first keepers gave them to them more centuries ago, believing it would keep famine away. They were meant to sleep forever, but each time the gate weakens, they wake hungry." Emma's throat tightened. "And you kept this going?" "Someone had to." He gestured toward the wall. It was moving, subtly, like the stone was breathing. "If the song stops before the binding is renewed, the more feeds. On guilt, on memory, on the living." He handed her a small wooden disc, carved with spirals. This was Liam's token. The keeper's mark. It answers when the choir sings. "You'll need it if you want to finish what he started." Emma hesitated, then took it. The moment her skin touched the wood, she heard it, faint, distant, children humming in harmony. The melody was beautiful and terrifying all at once, each note vibrating inside her chest. When she returned home, she locked every door and window. But the singing didn't stop. It came from inside the walls, soft and patient. At midnight, her lights flickered, and the radio turned on by itself. A soft static voice whispered between frequencies. "He fed us. You must too." Her phone buzzed on the table, another message from the diner's number. Rule 3. Appease the forgotten. She stared at it, trembling. "What do you want from me?" she whispered to the empty room. From somewhere deep in the plumbing, a child's voice answered. A song. The next evening, Emma returned to the ruins. The pit where the diner once stood was half filled with rainwater, the surface trembling as if something beneath it were breathing. She knelt beside it and set the wooden disc on the ground. The spirals began to glow faintly red. Then, faintly at first, she heard them, dozens of children's voices rising from the pit, singing the same broken lullaby from her dreams. "Sleep, sleep, the hunger keeps. Feed the dark so it never weeps." The water rippled, glowing from below. She saw faces, pale, open-eyed, floating just beneath the surface. Tears burned her eyes. "I can't do this," she whispered. Rory's voice echoed behind her. "You don't have a choice." She turned. He was standing in the shadows, half his face gone to rot, one eye milky white. "Sing," he said softly. "If you don't join them, they'll climb out." Her body moved before her mind agreed. She opened her mouth and began to hum, a broken, off-key imitation of the tune. The voices below harmonized, rising higher, until the ground trembled. The red glow brightened, spreading like veins through the cracks of the stone. Then, silence. The water went still. And the wooden disc in her hand was warm. Rory exhaled a shuddering breath. You kept them quiet for now. But the binding won't hold without blood. Emma rose slowly, shaking. Whose blood? Rory's dead eyes met hers. Yours, if you're lucky. Someone else's if you're not. Over the following days, Edinburgh began to change. The fog thickened, clinging low to the ground. Birds no longer sang. The city's clock slowed, all by the same 3 minutes. People reported hearing music rising from manholes and drains, a faint humming that made dogs bark and children cry. Emma's reflection no longer matched her movements in mirrors. Sometimes, she'd see Liam standing behind her, smiling faintly, mouthing words she couldn't hear. Other times, it was the children, their faces warped by glass. She tried recording the sounds on her phone, but every playback was static, and within the noise, a whisper repeating her name. On the 7th night, the dreams returned, more vivid than before. She stood in a drowned version of Edinburgh, the castle half submerged in black water. The streets were filled with pale figures, singing as they floated above the waves. In the distance, a massive shape moved beneath the surface, vast, serpentine, glowing faintly red. When she woke, her sheets were damp with seawater. The wooden disc lay beside her on the pillow, humming faintly. And beneath the floorboards, faint knocking. 3 times. At dawn, she went back to Rory. He was waiting at the entrance to the vaults, holding a rusted tin of salt and ash. It's spreading faster than I thought, he muttered. The choir's call is waking the gate. How do we stop it? Emma asked. Rory studied her face. You can't stop it. You can only feed it until it sleeps again. No, she said firmly. I'm ending this. He stared at her for a long moment, then smiled, sad and tired. That's what your brother said. He handed her a folded piece of paper, yellowed, stained, edges burnt. On it were 6 rules, written in Liam's handwriting, almost identical to the ones from the locker. But below the last line, in a different hand, was something new. Rule 7, if the song finds you, sing, or be swallowed. Emma looked up, her pulse pounding. You said there were 6. There were, Rory said. Now there's 7. Before she could answer, the ground shook. A deep rumble rolled through the tunnels, followed by the distant echo of children screaming in unison. Rory's lantern shattered, plunging them into darkness. It's waking, he whispered. The moor's listening. And then she heard it, faint but unmistakable, a heartbeat beneath the city, slow and massive, syncing with her own. That night, every light in Edinburgh flickered. Power lines hummed. The wind carried a sound like chanting. In her flat, Emma pressed her hands to her ears, but the song vibrated through her bones. The wooden disc on her desk glowed blood red, and faint letters began carving themselves into the wood. Feed the choir. She stumbled backward as her reflection in the window grinned. Outside, the fog pulsed with light, and in the distance, over the black silhouette of the castle, something enormous stirred beneath the clouds. Segment 3, the moor beneath the castle. By the 9th night, the fog over Edinburgh no longer moved with the wind, it breathed. Every exhale came from somewhere beneath the streets. The mist rose and fell in slow rhythm, filling closes and alleyways with a pulse that matched Emma's heartbeat. The city had grown silent. No cars. No birds. Just the low vibration that hummed through stone and bone alike. People stayed indoors, whispering about the sleeping sickness spreading through Leith and Old Town, whole families who'd fallen into comas, their mouths open as if singing in their dreams. But Emma knew better. She could hear it now. The lullaby. The forgotten choir. She hadn't slept in 2 days. Her flat had become a labyrinth of notes, maps, and sketches pinned to the walls, diagrams of the vaults, the diner ruins, and the Celtic sigils carved beneath the city. Liam's old journal lay open on the table, pages warped from water damage. In the margins, he'd drawn concentric spirals, the same ones that glowed under the diner, and written phrases in shaking handwriting. The moor is the gate. The keeper feeds the sky. The city is the body. When she closed the book, she heard the softest whisper. Emma. Her reflection in the window didn't move with her this time. It stood still, eyes open, lips parting slowly. It's waiting for you, the reflection said. Under the castle. Then it smiled, Liam's smile. And the glass cracked. By dusk, she was already climbing the hill toward Edinburgh Castle. The fog thickened as she approached the gates, curling through the air like pale fingers. The tourists were gone. The guards too. Only silence, and the faint scent of burning oil. She passed beneath the old archway and followed the path toward the Half-Moon Battery, the oldest part of the fortress, built on a cliff that had once been a burial site. Her footsteps echoed hollowly on the cobblestones. She found the entrance where Rory said it would be, behind a locked maintenance shed, hidden under a rusted grate. The metal was warm to the touch, as though something below it radiated faint heat. She hesitated only once, then pulled it open. A wave of humid air rolled up, thick with salt and the stench of blood. The tunnel beneath the castle was older than the city itself. The walls were carved from volcanic rock, slick and black, veined with faint red light. Spirals lined every surface, pulsing slowly, breathing in sync. Emma's phone flashlight flickered as she descended. The air vibrated, not just with sound, but with memory. She heard echoes of footsteps that weren't hers. Whispers in Gaelic. Laughter. Prayers. Then, a child's voice. You sang for us. She froze. You sang so we could dream again. She turned the light toward the sound, and saw them. Dozens of translucent children, pale as frost, standing in the dark. Their mouths were open, their eyes hollow. And they were singing. Their voices rose in perfect unison, a haunting, wordless hymn that reverberated through the tunnel walls. The sound pressed into Emma's skull until her knees gave way. We keep the hunger dreaming, one of them whispered. But it's waking now. The ground trembled. Cracks split through the stone, glowing red. Somewhere far below, something shifted, slow and massive, like continents turning beneath an ocean. Rory appeared behind her, lantern flickering wildly. You shouldn't have come alone. Emma turned, shaking. You lied to me. You said the binding would hold. Rory's face was grey and cracked, his veins pulsing with light. It did, until you sang. Your voice was the key. It knows your blood now. He stepped forward, the lantern shaking in his trembling hand. You can still finish the rite. All of this, the choir, the hunger, it can end, but you'll have to give it what it wants. Emma's voice broke. And what's that? A keeper's heart. He smiled faintly. Yours? Before she could respond, the tunnel convulsed, stone screaming like metal. A section of the floor collapsed, revealing a vast chamber beneath them. The light from Rory's lantern spilled downward, reflecting off a surface of liquid black, smooth, glass-like, infinite. They descended together. The air down there was wet and heavy, thick with the sound of a slow heartbeat that shook the chamber walls. When her feet touched the floor, she realized it wasn't stone, it was flesh. The ground throbbed. In the center of the chamber stood a massive iron ring, identical to the one Liam had described in his notes. Its surface was slick with dark fluid. Carved around its rim were words she didn't recognize, older than language. And from within it came the sound, the breathing. Rory knelt beside it, setting the lantern down. His hand shook as he traced one of the sigils. This is the moor. The gate. The world's oldest hunger. Emma stared, whispering, "It's alive." Rory nodded slowly. It always was. The chamber grew colder. The red light from the carvings brightened, pulsing in rhythm with the choir's song above. The surface of the moor began to ripple. Slowly, a shape emerged, vast and terrible, a single eye, blood-red and veined with light, opening beneath the black fluid. Emma's breath hitched. The reflection of the eye filled the entire chamber. She could see herself inside it, small, insignificant, seen. "Emma Carter," it said, in 100 voices. "You carry his guilt." The sound wasn't sound, it vibrated inside her bones. "You fed my children. You sang my song. Now you will bind my hunger." Rory turned to her. His voice was barely human now. "It must have blood. The circle demands sacrifice." She took a step back. "No. There has to be another way." "There isn't," Rory rasped. "That's why he burned. He chose to die keeping it sealed." The eye blinked, and the chamber shook. The choir screamed in harmony. Rory lifted the salt tin from his coat, opening it with shaking hands. "I can hold it open," he said. "You can finish the rite. But once it's bound, there must always be a keeper. That's the law of the moor." Emma stared at him, tears streaming down her face. "I'm not him." "No," he whispered, smiling faintly. "You're better." He poured the salt in a circle, the ashes spiraling outward. The ground hissed. Light erupted from the cracks. The moor screamed, a sound like mountains grinding together. Emma fell to her knees, pressing her palms into the circle. The heat seared her skin, but she didn't stop. She repeated the words Liam had written, a prayer, a curse, a plea. "Salt and ash, blood and bone. Hunger, sleep, leave us alone." The light flared blinding white. Rory screamed, his body splitting apart in ribbons of fire and shadow. The choir's song rose to a deafening pitch, then cut off mid-note. Silence. The eye closed. The floor went still. And then, a heartbeat. One. Slow. Steady. Emma slumped forward, trembling. The air was calm again, heavy with heat. When she opened her eyes, Rory was gone. Only his lantern remained, flickering faintly beside the iron ring. She looked down, the spirals in the floor had rearranged themselves. New words carved in glowing red. "The moor is bound." Her hands were covered in blood. The salt had turned black. Above her, through the cracks in the ceiling, faint dawn light bled into the chamber. She whispered into the silence, "It's over." But somewhere deep below, a low voice answered, soft, amused, endless. "For now." Part 3, Segment 1, The Keeper's Burden. 3 weeks after the binding, Edinburgh began to breathe again. The fog lifted, the street lights stayed lit, and the choir's song faded into silence. The newspapers called it the long blackout, blaming it on a gas leak and electromagnetic interference. No one questioned the missing families, or the reports of children singing under the castle. They never did. Emma Carter watched the city return to its rhythm, tourists on the Royal Mile, buses rumbling through Prince's Street, pub laughter echoing late into the night. But the normalcy was wrong. Too precise. Too quiet. Because she could still hear it. Not the full choir anymore, just a single hum, buried beneath the noise of the city. A heartbeat under the cobblestones, steady and patient. And it beat in time with hers. Her hands had stopped healing properly. The burns she'd gotten from the ritual circle still glowed faintly beneath the skin, the scars shaped like spirals that pulsed when the weather turned cold. Sometimes she'd catch her reflection in a mirror and see faint movement under her skin, the suggestion of veins glowing dim red. She told herself it was trauma, that she was imagining it. But the more she tried to forget, the clearer the whispers became. They weren't words at first, just sound. A vibration at the edge of hearing. Then, one night, as she lay awake, it spoke. "Keeper." She sat up, heart pounding. The word wasn't in her ears, it was inside her. "The hunger sleeps. You keep it fed." She stumbled to the mirror. Her reflection blinked a half-second out of sync. Its mouth moved before hers. "Liam kept me. Rory fed me. Now you, little flame." Her throat closed. "No," she whispered. "I ended you." The reflection smiled faintly, its voice soft, maternal, almost kind. "Nothing ends. It only feeds. In the following days, she noticed small changes across the city, puddles that shimmered red even under grey skies, drains that exhaled steam smelling faintly of salt and blood, shadows that moved against the light. Everywhere she went, the air carried that faint hum, in alleyways, in shop windows, in her own breath. She tried returning to her job at the cafe near Cowgate, but her co-workers noticed she was off. They said her eyes looked tired, that she hummed under her breath without realizing. And every night, she dreamt of the moor's eye, opening and closing beneath the castle, a heartbeat sinking closer to her own each time. One evening, while closing up the cafe, she heard a voice behind her. "You shouldn't work here." She turned. The man standing by the counter was tall, pale, wearing a maintenance jacket with MacTavish stitched on the breast, a name that hadn't meant anything for weeks. His eyes were milky white, his smile too still. "That name shouldn't exist anymore," Emma said quietly. The man tilted his head. "Names endure. Hunger endures. You're the keeper now. You should know that." Her pulse spiked. "Who are you?" He smiled wider. "We all are, eventually." Then he blinked, and when his eyes opened again, he was gone. The air smelled of grease and old coffee. And on the counter, someone had left a single coin, engraved with the spiral. That night, the voices returned. Louder. Closer. She woke to find her room filled with water, shallow, ankle-deep, shimmering faint red under the moonlight. The walls pulsed softly, like the inside of a lung. The water didn't soak the floor. It just was. A child's voice came from behind her. "Keeper, it's hungry again." Emma turned slowly. The child standing in the corner was one of the forgotten, a small boy with hollow eyes and skin translucent as ice. His mouth didn't move when he spoke. "We sang. We fed. But it's dreaming too long." "I bound it," Emma whispered. "You fed it," the child said gently. "Now it wants more." He raised his hand, pointing toward the window. Outside, the fog had returned, thick, heavy, and pulsing with faint light. "They are coming back," he whispered. "The ones who sang last." Then he was gone. By morning, the fog hadn't lifted. It clung to the rooftops and curled through alleyways, moving against the wind. The radio played static between every station, and within the static, Emma could make out words. "The gate stirs. The keeper weakens." She drove to the ruins of the grease joint. The site was fenced off again, but the guards were gone. The pit where the moor had been sealed was filled now, paved over, covered with concrete and new scaffolding. A sign stood in front of it, Edinburgh Council, New Housing Development Project. But when she pressed her hand to the concrete, it was warm. The ground throbbed. And in the center, etched faintly into the fresh cement, someone had carved a spiral. That night, Emma sat on her balcony, staring at the skyline. She could feel the heartbeat of the city through her chair, through the railing, through the air itself. The whispers were constant now, hundreds of them, murmuring beneath the world. Then her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. "Emma Carter," a voice rasped. She froze. "Rory?" "The gate never sleeps," the voice said. "It moves through new skin now. Through you." "Where are you?" she whispered. "Everywhere it's dark." The call cut out. A moment later, a message appeared on her screen. Rules updated. Rule 1, keep the fires burning. Rule 2, don't silence the choir. Rule 3, never look down when it breathes. Her phone screen flickered, and her reflection on the black glass smiled. The next day, reports of disappearances returned. Bus drivers vanishing mid-route. Tourists missing from Old Town tours. Locals claiming to hear singing under the pavement. Emma went to the vaults again. The air was colder now, the spiral carvings pulsing faint red. As she descended, she saw new carvings, fresher, deeper. The symbols weren't etched by tools, they were grown. The tunnels no longer felt like tunnels. They felt like arteries. At the lowest level, she found Liam's mug, the one he'd used at the diner. It was sitting on a rock, filled with something dark and steaming. When she picked it up, the liquid inside shimmered and reflected her brother's face. "You can't fight it," Liam whispered. "You can only feed it the right way." "What does that mean?" she choked. "Keep them from starving. The choir must sing, or it wakes hungry again." Then his image faded, leaving only her own reflection, pale, trembling, and no longer entirely human. The spirals beneath her feet pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. The air tasted like blood and salt. And from deep below, the more exhaled. Segment 2, The City of Hunger. By the second week of fog, the news stopped naming it. The anchors spoke in polite abstractions, persistent atmospheric interference, temporary network outages. But everyone in the city could feel it, a weight behind the lungs, a pressure in the ears, hum that never stopped. The kind of silence that feels listened to. Emma no longer used mirrors. Every time she looked, the reflection smiled half a heartbeat late. She worked at the cafe less and less, claiming migraines. When she walked home, the street lamps pulsed with her footsteps. Their light wasn't yellow anymore, but the dull crimson of blood seemed through thin skin. The first to notice was her neighbor, Mrs. McAllen, a kindly woman with a voice like crushed velvet who lived downstairs with 2 cats. She knocked on Emma's door one night, eyes wide. "Do you hear it too, dearie? The music?" Emma forced a smile. "Just the wind." "That's not wind, lass." Mrs. McAllen's voice trembled. "It's St. John. Comes up through the pipes. The bends in the walls." Emma closed the door softly and leaned against it, hard hammering. From below, faint and rhythmic, came the sound of humming, her own voice, repeating a melody she didn't remember learning. She stopped sleeping. Instead, she walked the city at night, following the hum that threaded through the gutters and manholes. Sometimes she caught glimpses, reflections moving independently, shadows walking parallel to their owners. On the 5th night, she found herself at the base of Arthur's Seat, the dormant volcano looming black against the fog. A storm was building, low and electric. The hum grew louder as she climbed the rocky path. The wind cut through her coat, but the warmth inside her chest only deepened, a slow, heavy heartbeat that didn't belong to her alone. Halfway up, she saw the lights, small, flickering flames dotted across the hillside. People stood around them, silent figures in ragged coats, their eyes glowing faint red. They were singing. Salt and ash, blood and bone. Feed the dark so it never moan. The same hymn from the vaults. Her brother's words. When the figures turned toward her, she realized their mouths were stitched shut. The sound wasn't coming from them. It came through them. The next morning, the city woke to headlines. 30 missing after hillside gathering. Authorities blame cult activity. Emma sat at her kitchen table, the newspaper spread out before her, coffee untouched. The photo above the article showed her shadow, unmistakably her, among the crowd on Arthur's Seat. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Keep the song alive." She dropped the phone. It kept buzzing on the floor, screen flashing red with every vibration. When she finally picked it up, the background had changed. A live feed. A drain somewhere in the old town, water swirling in tight spirals. And in the reflection, a single, lidless eye. By now, the voices were constant companions. They whispered during showers, in the whine of kettles, in the rhythm of her breath. At first, she ignored them. Then she began answering, short murmurs at the edge of waking, unconscious hums of acknowledgement. Her apartment grew colder. Plants wilted. Food spoiled overnight. Yet she remained perfectly healthy. Too healthy. Her skin glowed faintly beneath the surface, like light trapped under frost. Sometimes she woke with salt on her hands. Once, she found herself standing on her balcony at dawn, humming as pigeons gathered at her feet, unmoving, their eyes milky white. The government announced a citywide quarantine to contain chemical leaks. But the people who tried to leave never reached the outskirts. Buses vanished into fog. Trains stopped mid-tunnel and never came out. On social media, footage leaked, phones recording streets breathing, asphalt pulsing under car tires, storm drains whispering hymns. Hashtags trended for days, #RedMist, #SingingStreets, #KeepTheQuire. Emma scrolled through the chaos from her dark apartment, light from the screen flickering across her face. In one video, a man filmed the castle at night. Lightning flashed, and for a heartbeat, the silhouette of something enormous loomed above it, coiled and pulsating like a living heart. Her phone vibrated again. Rule 4, feed the faithful. She stared at it until tears blurred the screen. What am I supposed to do? From the speaker came a familiar voice, soft, tired, loving. You already are. It was Liam's voice. Days blurred. The fog deepened until the sun was only a rumor. Street lights flickered red. The river froze, but the ice breathed, swelling with each tide. People began disappearing in daylight, a shopkeeper here, a child there, each vanishing accompanied by faint humming, a resonance that lingered for hours. Emma kept hearing her name whispered from drains and alleyways. Once, when she turned toward the sound, she saw her own face staring back from a puddle, lips moving in perfect synchrony. It's hungry, her reflection whispered. And so are you. She wanted to deny it, but hunger had become part of her, not for food, but for sound, for the pulse of the choir. Each silence now hurt like a bruise. One evening, driven by instinct more than thought, she returned to the vaults. The air was thick and warm. The walls pulsed faint red again, veins visible beneath the rock. The spirals glowed when she entered, like they recognized her. In the central chamber, she found Rory. Or what was left of him. His form hung suspended in the air, translucent, veins filled with light, mouth open in eternal song. His body pulsed with the rhythm of the city. Keeper, he said, his voice layered with others. You are the mouth now. The more feeds through you. She shook her head, backing away. No, I'm still me. Are you? He asked. Then why do you sing? She realized she was. A low hum escaped her throat, matching the heartbeat of the chamber. She pressed her hands over her mouth, but the sound didn't stop, it came from inside her chest, from something deeper. Rory smiled, or the thing wearing his face did. Soon the choir will breathe through every street, every vein of this city. Then the more will open its eyes again. You've been a perfect keeper. Then why tell me this? She gasped. Because keepers always think they can choose. And that illusion feeds it best. The tunnel shook. Cracks opened in the ceiling, releasing bursts of red mist. Through them came voices, thousands, chanting her name. Emma fell to her knees, clutching her head. The sound was unbearable, a chorus of devotion, pain, and hunger. She felt the heartbeat beneath her synchronize with her own, then overpower it. Let go, the voices whispered. Become the song. She screamed, but her scream harmonized with them, layered perfectly, swallowed by the choir. Light erupted around her, flooding every corridor, bursting through the streets above. For one blinding moment, all of Edinburgh sang. And then, silence. When Emma opened her eyes, she was lying on the castle esplanade. The fog was gone. Morning sunlight touched the stones. Tourists walked by, laughing, taking pictures. She stood shakily, her body whole, her hands clean. No scars, no blood, no salt. The city looked healed. But when she breathed in, the air tasted of ash. And beneath the laughter, she heard it, so faint she might have imagined it, a hum. The choir. Still there. Waiting. She turned toward the castle gate. On the stone beside it, freshly carved, was a spiral. Beneath it, 6 words etched in her brother's handwriting. Every city needs its keeper. Segment 3, The More Reborn. At first, Emma believed she'd survived. For a few days, Edinburgh felt real again, fragile, ordinary. Tourists filled the streets, shopkeepers reopened their shutters, the news cycle moved on. But the light was wrong. Sunlight felt painted on, shallow, as if stretched over something vast and rotting underneath. And when she walked through the city, she could hear it breathing again. The first sign came from the river. Standing on the bridge one morning, she noticed the surface moving against the current. Ripples flowed backward, converging toward the city's heart instead of out to sea. The reflection of the sky flickered, not clouds, but shapes, pulsing and organic. Beneath her, the stone trembled faintly, like a slow heartbeat. And then, from the water, came a voice. "Keeper." She froze. The voice was deep, not human, not singular. It vibrated through the air, through her bones. "You fed the choir. You kept me dreaming. Now awaken, and see what you have made." The water convulsed. Red light shimmered beneath the surface. For a moment, she saw a city beneath the city, towers of bone and glass, roads made of veins, the castle a colossal heart-pumping black mist into the sky. Then the image vanished. But the hum remained. That night, she dreamt in color she'd never seen. In the dream, Edinburgh floated above a vast black sea. The streets were alive, breathing, pulsing, whispering. Every window was an eye. Every building a tooth. And above it all, suspended in the red haze of dawn, loomed the moor, not as an eye or a mouth, but as a shape beyond shape, a void folding in on itself, endlessly. In the dream, she wasn't afraid. She was singing. When she woke, the song still echoed in her throat. By the fifth morning, the city began to change again. Fog returned, thicker than before. Street lamps flickered in rhythm, flashing like cardiac monitors. Birds fell from the sky, their feathers smoking. People forgot where they were mid-conversation, freezing in place until someone touched them. When they moved again, their eyes glowed faint red. The news anchors kept smiling as blood trickled from their noses. Broadcasts looped the same hour again and again. And under every voice, human, mechanical, digital, the same undertone hummed. The choir. Emma tried leaving the city. She drove south, out past the bypass. The air cleared for a few miles, sunlight feeling real again, until she checked her rearview mirror. Edinburgh wasn't behind her. It was ahead. She slammed the brakes. The road was gone, replaced by cobblestone slick with blood. The skyline rose in front of her, inverted, streets hanging upside down, spires piercing a sky that pulsed like flesh. She was inside it. There was no outside anymore. The car's radio turned on by itself. Liam's voice filled the speakers, soft and steady. "You did your best, Em. But nothing ends here. The moor doesn't destroy, it rewrites." "What do you mean?" she whispered. "It's not under the city anymore. It is the city. And now, so are you." The dashboard lights turned red. The steering wheel melted into her hands. When she tried to pull away, her fingers wouldn't move, her skin fused with the vinyl. The choir's hum filled the car, vibrating her teeth, her bones, her lungs. She screamed, but even her scream came out in harmony. When she woke again, she was back in her apartment. Except it wasn't her apartment. The walls pulsed faintly with light. The ceiling dripped condensation that smelled of salt and iron. The wallpaper patterns shifted like muscle fibers. She stumbled to the window, and froze. Outside, the city had transformed. Buildings twisted like coral reefs, stretching skyward in spirals of red glass and black stone. Roads pulsed with bloodlight, carrying luminous fluid instead of cars. In the sky hung something enormous, a shadow like a cathedral suspended in clouds. It pulsed once for every beat of her heart. "Do you see it now?" the voice whispered inside her mind. "The more reborn. The keeper fulfilled." Emma fell to her knees. "No. I didn't mean." "Meaning is hunger," the voice replied gently. "And hunger never dies." The door behind her creaked open. Rory stood there, or the thing that wore him. His form was stretched thin, his skin translucent, red light pulsing beneath like magma veins. He smiled. "Beautiful, isn't it? The first rebirth in 1,000 years." Emma stared up, trembling. You said I could bind it. Rory laughed, a sound like grinding stone. You did. You bound it to yourself. He stepped closer, placing a cold, glowing hand on her shoulder. The maw doesn't just eat, Emma. It becomes. It consumes names, memories, cities, everything that defines. You're not its prisoner. You're its voice. Her vision blurred. The walls throbbed in rhythm with her pulse. I won't let it spread, she whispered. It already has, he said. Look around you. He gestured toward the window. The city pulsed. 1,000 red eyes opened across the skyline. Every soul who hears the choir joins it. Every hum, every echo, every heartbeat becomes part of the maw's song. And you, Keeper, you're its first note. Emma staggered back, shaking. Then I'll end it. All of it. She ran to the balcony, the air thick with heat. Below, the streets moved, literally moved, veins and cobblestones shifting like flesh. In the distance, the castle pulsed like a massive heart. From its towers rose streams of red light, feeding into the clouds. She looked at her hands, they were glowing. The spirals beneath her skin pulsed faster, in perfect rhythm with the city. You can't end it, Rory murmured behind her. You are it. She turned to face him, and saw his body begin to collapse inward, light spilling from his eyes and mouth. His last words were barely audible. The maw endures. Then he dissolved into mist. Something broke inside her. The hum in her head turned deafening, vibrating her skull. The city below began to sing. Thousands of voices, human, spectral, mechanical, joined in harmony. The melody was Liam's lullaby, slowed to the tempo of tectonic movement. Emma screamed, and the city screamed with her. Lightning tore across the red sky, striking the castle. The ground split open, revealing an ocean of molten blackness beneath. From it rose the maw, no longer a shape, but a presence that filled every thought, every molecule. Its voice was everything and nothing. You fed me well. Now feed me the world. Emma fell to her knees, shaking. I won't. You already have. The horizon folded inward. The clouds inverted, spilling light instead of rain. The world was becoming inside out. She felt her body dissolve into mist, her veins turning to threads of sound. Her consciousness stretched, fracturing, merging with the heartbeat beneath the earth. She could see everything, every street, every voice, every drop of blood. She was the city. She was the hunger. In that vast red eternity, one fragment of Emma's mind whispered a single thought, remember. And the maw hesitated. The choir stuttered. The song faltered. For one impossible moment, the entire city stopped breathing. Through sheer will, through memory, she reached toward the echo of Liam, the only warmth left in her collapsing mind. You said it would end, she whispered. His voice, faint as a dying flame. Then make it. She took a breath that wasn't a breath. And for the last time, she sang, a counter-melody, pure and dissonant. The sound tore through the city like light through glass. The red sky shattered. The hum turned to silence. Then, darkness. When the world returned, there was no Edinburgh. Only mist. Only stillness. And on the ground, half buried in ash, lay a single wooden disc carved with spirals. A child's voice whispered faintly from nowhere. The keeper sleeps. The hunger waits. Then, nothing. Part 4, Segment 1, Echoes of the Keeper. The world didn't end. It just forgot how to be alive. What remained of Edinburgh existed in fragments, a city frozen mid-motion, half ash, half glass. The streets were paved with the shadows of those who had stood there when the light broke. Buildings leaned at impossible angles, half melted into each other like memories in decay. And above it all hung the mist. Red. Still. Waiting. Weeks passed, or what felt like weeks. The sun rose and set irregularly, light stuttering like a faulty heartbeat. Those who survived the transformation didn't speak much. Many had lost their reflections. Some didn't cast shadows anymore. They called the city the Hollow Place. Rumors spread that the ground itself listened, that if you whispered too loudly, something beneath would whisper back. The survivors built fires and spoke in gestures instead of words. Silence became sacred. Breath became fear. One of them, a woman named Clara Byrne, had been a paramedic before everything changed. She remembered lights, sirens, screams, then red, and a sound so deep it shook her bones to liquid. When she woke, her ambulance was fused into a wall of glass, its light still pulsing faintly inside like an insect trapped in amber. She scavenged what she could. Canned food. Water. A radio that played only static. And a journal, pages filled with spirals drawn in red ink. On the first page, in faded handwriting, it read, "The Keeper sleeps. The more dreams." Clara didn't know who the Keeper was. But the deeper she wandered into the hollow place, the more she felt it, a pull, faint but insistent, like gravity. She dreamed of someone humming under their breath. A woman's voice. Soft. Familiar. And sometimes, when the mist moved a certain way, she saw her, a silhouette in the distance, standing perfectly still, eyes open, mouth closed. Always watching. On the 12th day, Clara found a group of survivors sheltering in what used to be Waverley Station. They built makeshift walls from train cars and tarps, lit fires in oil drums. They called themselves the Quiet. Their leader, an older man named Soren, warned her not to travel after dusk. "That's when the echoes walk," he said. "Voices without throats. They look for mouths to borrow." Clara tried not to believe him, until she heard them herself. That night, while she lay awake, she caught the sound of someone humming just outside her tent. It was the same melody from her dreams. When she stepped outside, the mist parted briefly, revealing a shape, tall, feminine, her eyes glowing faintly red. "Emma?" Clara whispered, without knowing why. The figure tilted its head. Its voice was distant, distorted, yet heartbreakingly human. "Keep them quiet, Clara. Please. Before it wakes again." Then the fog swallowed her whole. The next morning, Clara found the ground beneath her tent soaked with seawater. Salt crystals glittered in the dirt, arranged into perfect spirals. She didn't tell the others. But she started hearing it again, the heartbeat. Slow, patient, deep below the city. Soren noticed her restlessness. "You've been marked," he said quietly one night. She laughed bitterly. "Marked by what?" "By the song," he said. "We all are, some more than others. But you hum when you sleep." Clara froze. He handed her a small object, a wooden disc, cracked but still carved with spirals. "We found it in the old castle vaults. It hums when the fog grows thick. None of us can hold it long." Clara reached for it. The moment her skin touched the surface, she felt warmth, then a pulse. The rhythm matched her heartbeat. She dropped it, gasping. The hum continued. That night, she dreamt of Emma Carter. Not as a ghost or goddess, but as something between. Emma stood in the ruins of the diner, her skin faintly luminous, her veins glowing like embers under ice. Around her, shadows knelt in silent worship. "You're still here," Clara said. "I never left," Emma replied. Her voice echoed like wind through stone. "The city needs a keeper. It chose you next." Clara shook her head. "No. I'm no one." Emma smiled faintly. "So was I." The dream dissolved into light. When Clara woke, her palms were bleeding, small spiral burns carved into her flesh. The survivors of the Quiet began to vanish. One by one, they wandered into the mist and didn't return. Those who stayed whispered that they'd heard voices calling their names in perfect imitation of loved ones long dead. Soren grew paranoid, refusing to sleep. He spoke of the new choir, of the more adapting, growing through those who carried its hum. "It's not a god," he said one morning, shaking. "It's a memory that learned to feed." When he finally disappeared, Clara found his boots left behind near the train tracks. Inside them, salt. And beneath the salt, carved into the concrete, a single phrase. Feed it silence. The following days blurred into ash and echo. The mist thickened until the sky vanished completely. The heartbeat grew louder. Clara began keeping the fires lit, as if instinct told her they mattered. Sometimes she'd hear children laughing in the distance, other times, humming that matched her pulse. One night, while feeding the flames, she noticed something glinting in the ashes. A small coin, copper, etched with a spiral identical to the one on the disc. When she picked it up, a voice whispered in her ear, gentle, familiar, almost loving. "Thank you for keeping the hunger warm." She turned, no one was there. But the mist behind her shifted like a curtain. And standing there, barefoot, was Emma, or the echo of her. "The moor isn't gone," Emma said softly. "It only changed shape. It lives in those who remember." "Then what am I supposed to do?" Clara asked. "Forget," Emma said. "Before it learns your name." Then she vanished, leaving only the scent of salt and smoke. But forgetting was impossible. Every time Clara tried to push the memories away, the humming returned, stronger, clearer. Sometimes she found herself mouthing words she didn't understand. Other times, she'd wake standing in the street, staring toward the castle ruins, her hands covered in ash. She realized then, the moor wasn't just beneath the ground anymore. It was inside them. Every survivor carried a fragment. Every hum, every heartbeat, every whispered word was part of its dream. And she, unwilling, terrified, was its next voice. By the time the fires died, the city had begun to move again. Not rebuilt, alive. Stone shifted, glass breathed, streets realigned. The hollow place pulsed once more, faint red veins threading through the mist. In the distance, from beneath the castle's heart, came a sound she knew too well, a lullaby. Liam's song. Emma's curse. The choir's rebirth. Clara knelt by the fire, trembling. "I can't do this," she whispered. The mist whispered back, her own voice answering from every direction. "You already are." She wept. The ashes around her glowed red. And as the song rose again beneath the earth, Clara understood the final truth: the moor never devoured the world. It became it. Everything else was just the echo. Segment 2, The Hollow Choir. By the time the fires of the hollow place burned out, the survivors had begun to pray. Not to gods. Not to hope. To her. They didn't know her name, only that when they sang the lullaby, the one with no beginning and no end, the fog grew warm and the ground stopped trembling. They called her the Sleeping Mouth, and the hymn they built around her was known as the Chorus of Keeping. Clara didn't join them. She knew better. Every note of that song was a key, every breath a door. And doors, once opened, always led downward. The encampment spread across what used to be central Edinburgh, fractured groups building shelters around the last standing structures, the church spire at Canongate, the melted glass towers near Leith, the hollow bones of the castle above it all. They were divided by belief. Some worshipped the silence, refusing to speak at all. Others carved spirals into their skin, believing the pattern would keep them in tune with the dreaming moor. Clara moved among them quietly, gathering stories. She found drawings of a woman with red-lit eyes and silver scars. Sometimes the children whispered her name before sleep. The Keeper. Each time she heard it, the air pulsed faintly. One night, a boy no older than 10 approached her by the fire. His face was streaked with soot, but his eyes shone with something like devotion. "You were there," he said softly. "At the beginning." Clara froze. "What beginning?" "When the song started. The red light. You made it quiet again." She shook her head. "That wasn't me." "It's always you," the boy whispered, and placed something in her hand, a coin. Copper. Spiral engraved. Still warm. When she looked up, he was gone. The coin pulsed once, then the humming began again, deep in the earth. By morning, the camps were restless. A sound had risen beneath the city, low, harmonic, impossibly vast. The same melody the choir once sang, now slower, deeper, and woven through every sound of the waking world. Fires dimmed when the song peaked. Water shimmered red when it paused. Soren's old warnings returned to Clara's mind, the echoes walk. And they did. At dusk, she saw shapes moving through the mist, hundreds of them, translucent figures with mouths open wide, walking in unison toward the castle. Their song was silent, yet it vibrated the bones. The camps fell silent as they passed. The believers knelt, the rest hid. Clara watched from a shattered window, her heart thudding in time with the rhythm. They are not ghosts, she whispered to no one. They are memories replaying themselves. But the ground answered. No. They are the next verse. That night, she couldn't sleep. The lullaby haunted the air, threading through every breath. She wandered to the outskirts of the hollow place, where the ruins met the sea. The shoreline had changed, the water was thicker, blacker, pulsing faintly under moonlight. The smell of salt had turned to iron. In the surf stood Emma Carter. She looked the same as before, pale, ethereal, veins glowing faintly under translucent skin. But her eyes were calm now, almost peaceful. You shouldn't have come, Emma said softly. It listens when we remember. Then why show yourself? Clara asked. Because forgetting won't save you either. She turned toward the horizon, where faint red lights flickered beneath the waves, hundreds, maybe thousands. It's spreading through water now, Emma murmured. Soon it will sing through every current, every storm. The choir isn't hollow, it's hungry. Clara stepped closer. Then tell me how to stop it. Emma's voice wavered, almost breaking. You can't stop hunger. You can only give it shape. Be it silence, or its song. Then she was gone, dissolving into mist as the tide hissed against the shore. By dawn, the choir's influence had grown. The mist turned crimson. The air vibrated constantly, like the world was tuning itself. The survivors' eyes glowed faintly, their voices speaking in unison without realizing it. The children sang in their sleep. The adults carved spirals into every wall. And through it all, the words of Soren's warning came back, feed it silence. So Clara gathered what she could, candles, salt, ash, and made her way toward the castle. The climb was brutal. The air was hot, the stones underfoot breathing like embers. But she reached the top, where the ruins of the half-moon battery opened into a pit of soft, red light. The hum was deafening. The ground pulsed under her feet. At the center, suspended in air, hung the wooden disc. It turned slowly, glowing faintly. Each rotation matched her pulse. Keeper, a voice whispered. You came to sing again. I came to end it, Clara said. Her voice cracked, but she stood firm. End what? The voice asked gently. You can't end hunger. You are hunger. The mist rose around her, curling like fingers. Sing, Clara. Feed them peace. She dropped to her knees, clutching the disc. The wood burned hot against her skin. The heartbeat quickened, her pulse and the cities blending into one rhythm. She closed her eyes. And sang. It wasn't words. It was everything she remembered, pain, loss, hope, fear, poured into sound. The note echoed across the ruins, down through the hollow place, through the earth itself. The mist howled. The red light flickered. For a moment, it seemed to work. The song fractured, the hum faltered. The air went still. But then, another voice joined hers. Then another. Then hundreds. The survivors below had begun to sing too, drawn by her sound. The hollow choir had awoken. Their voices rose, building into a single, perfect harmony that filled the air like fire. Salt and ash, blood and bone. The disc in Clara's hand cracked. Her body convulsed, veins glowing red. Feed the dark so it never moan. The sky split open. From the fissure above, tendrils of black light poured down, reaching for the ruins. The air screamed. Clara's body lifted from the ground, suspended in the glow. You can't stop it, Emma's voice whispered in her ear. You can only decide what it becomes. Clara's eyes snapped open, burning bright red. Then I'll make it remember. She drew a breath that wasn't hers and sang a different note, discordant, pure, filled with memory. The harmony shattered. The choir's voices screamed and fell silent. The mist froze. The tendrils withdrew. And for the first time since the awakening, the world went quiet. When she woke, the city was gone again. No ruins. No choir. No fog. Just snow, endless white covering the bones of what once was. She stood alone in the silence, the broken disc in her hand. It didn't hum anymore. But faintly, in the distance, she thought she heard waves. Hours later, a storm rose on the horizon, crimson beneath the snow clouds. The wind carried a single, fragile sound, a lullaby. Clara closed her eyes. This time, she didn't sing. She simply listened. And in the stillness between heartbeats, she whispered to the frozen air. Sleep now, if you can. The wind sighed. The snow fell harder. And beneath the ice, something shifted, patient, eternal, waiting for the next voice to remember. Segment 3, the song that devoured heaven. The snow never stopped. It fell without sound, burying what remained of the hollow place until the world was nothing but white silence. Clara walked through it for what felt like days, though the sky never changed. No sun, no stars, just the faint red glow diffused through the clouds. The silence was total, so pure it pressed against her skull like a physical weight. She wondered if she'd finally ended it. If the silence she'd bought with her voice was peace, or only the pause before something greater exhaled. Each step left no print. The snow refused to remember her. Sometimes, when the wind shifted, she thought she heard faint echoes, not the choir, not the hum, but her own song, still circling somewhere below the frozen earth. The memory made her chest ache. Her throat was raw, though she hadn't spoken since the binding. She feared that if she did, the world itself would start singing again. And yet, the deeper she wandered into the endless snow, the more she realized she wasn't alone. At first, it was footprints, small, human, leading nowhere. Then shadows moving inside the blizzard, slow and rhythmic. By the third day, she saw them clearly, figures carved of frost and memory, walking in lines that matched no logic. They didn't breathe, didn't blink, didn't sink into the snow. Each of them mouthed silent words. As she passed them, she recognized faces, the quiet, the believers, the children from the camps. Their eyes glowed faintly, reflecting her own. They bowed their heads as she walked by. "You're still there, keeper," a voice murmured inside her skull. She stopped. "Emma?" The air shimmered. From the storm stepped the same translucent figure she'd seen by the sea, Emma Carter, eyes calm, glowing faintly red. "You kept the choir quiet," Emma said softly. "But quiet things still dream." Clara clenched her fists. "I stopped it. The more's gone." "Gone?" Emma tilted her head. "Tell me, Clara, when you close your eyes, what do you hear?" Clara hesitated. The wind. The faint rhythm of her pulse. And beneath that, something deeper. A heartbeat, slow and patient. She opened her mouth to deny it, but no words came. Emma smiled, sad and knowing. Hunger never dies. It only changes key. The snow cracked beneath them. A sound like distant thunder rolled across the horizon. Emma turned toward it. "It's waking again, not below, not within, but above." "You slowed it, but your silence made space for something greater to hear." Clara frowned. "Hear what?" "You." The sky tore open. Not lightning, sound. A rift in the clouds, vast and luminous, pulsing with color too deep to name. Through it came a light that wasn't light, vibrating, alive, singing in a tone so pure it made Clara's teeth ache. Every snowflake lifted into the air, drawn upward like dust into the breath of a god. The frost people fell to their knees, mouths opening in unison, faces turned to the shimmering wound in the sky. The melody that descended was perfect. No dissonance, no pain, only the echo of everything that had ever been loved, lost, or feared. Clara's eyes filled with tears. "What is it?" Emma's voice trembled. "The next verse. The song that eats the stars." The light reached the ground. When it touched the snow, it bloomed, black flowers of shadow spreading outward, each petal whispering fragments of memory. Voices bled from them, Liam's laughter, Rory's sorrow, her own cries from the vaults. The sound layered, looping, devouring itself until it became pure tone. Clara clutched her head. "Make it stop." "You can't," Emma whispered. "It's learning to sing through you again." The snow beneath Clara's feet melted, revealing a spiral carved into the ice, vast, endless, glowing from within. Her body ached with every pulse. The rhythm was no longer the earth's or the moor's. It was hers. The light bent toward her. Threads of brightness descended, weaving around her limbs like roots seeking soil. They entered her skin, merging with her veins. The pain was exquisite, not burning, but consuming. "Keeper," the sky sang through her. "Voice of the hollow. Sing us through the dark." She fell to her knees, screaming, but the scream carried harmony. The sound spread, filling the frozen plain, cracking the ice. Beneath it surged black water, moving in spirals. Emma reached for her, her voice barely audible over the song. "You can still shape it, Clara. You can decide what it becomes." Clara gasped through tears. How? By remembering what silence meant. She closed her eyes. Inside her head, the voices multiplied, billions of them, every person who had ever lived or died, all singing the same melody of hunger. The universe itself seemed to lean closer, listening. Her lungs filled with warmth. Her skin burned with light. She thought of Soren's warning, feed it silence. So she took a breath. And didn't exhale. The song faltered. The threads of light trembled. The sky's tone wavered, uncertain. "Keeper," the voice of the heavens asked. Clara held her breath until her vision dimmed. Her heart slowed. And in that dying stillness, she whispered a single word, quiet, human, defiant. "No." The universe shuddered. The rift in the sky folded inward, collapsing into a single, perfect note, silence inverted, the sound of nothing remembering itself. The frost figures turned to salt. The snow fell again, uncollared. Emma's form flickered, half light, half shadow. "You've done it," she breathed. "You've broken the song." Clara swayed, the light leaving her body. "Will it stop now?" Emma's expression was unreadable. "Nothing stops, Clara. But maybe it dreams slower now." She reached out, touching Clara's cheek. Her hand was warm, solid. "Rest. The next keeper will find their own verse." The mist swallowed her. When the world steadied, Clara stood alone under a grey sky. The red had faded. The air was cold, clean. She looked down. The spiral beneath her was gone. In its place, a single word carved into the ice. "Remember." She smiled faintly, tears freezing on her cheeks. "I will." Then she lay down in the snow. Her heartbeat slowed. The wind whispered through the ruins, carrying no song, no hum, only the faint sound of waves against a distant shore. Centuries later, or minutes, time no longer meant much, the snow melted. Beneath the thawed earth, archaeologists found ruins. Spiral carvings. Coins engraved with the image of a woman's face, her mouth half open, her eyes calm. They named her the Silent Saint. Legend spread of a song that once devoured heaven, silenced by a single human breath. Monks built temples around the discovery. And every night, when the wind passed through the halls, the walls hummed, faint, familiar, patient. Not a song. A heartbeat.